Well, Bev, major reason is because just a few weeks ago, George Clooney was at a very high-profile, big-money political fundraising event and observed firsthand what Joe Biden was like. And this is a very significant figure, obviously, coming outside of political circles. We've had a number of Democrats in the House and one Democratic senator so far overtly call for Biden to drop out. But George Clooney, of course, is a household name, and it's gotten huge attention, and we're likely to see more in the coming days. Also, it appears that George Clooney, according to some reports, reached out to Barack Obama to give him a heads up about this op-ed piece in the New York Times. And obviously, Obama apparently did not put up a red light to tell George Clooney, don't do this.
Which is so fascinating, Stephen. It's sort of adding weight to the fact that there is a campaign of sorts, whether it is a organised or concerted campaign taking place behind the scenes to try and really pressure Biden to step down.
Well, I don't know, Bev, if you call it an organized campaign, but definitely we have lawmakers talking to each other in conference calls. They're back. Congress is back this week, so they're talking one-on-one and in small groups. And we don't know what else is going on. Now, one thing we do know is that the president has been very busy this week with the NATO summit in Washington. And there are indications that some other prominent Democrats, including lawmakers, have not issued calls for Biden to resign out of respect for him hosting all of these foreign leaders. But it's a very critical day for the president because he's going to hold later on what's being called by the White House and by a bunch of reporters the big boy news conference, where it's a one-on-one. He's not standing aside a foreign leader who's visiting and just taking a couple of questions. This one is going to be quite comprehensive. Now, he or the press secretary will be able to choose who they call on, and I'm sure they're going to want to call on some international reporters to try to get some NATO questions. But I guarantee you, on this whatever program is running tomorrow in Australia or anywhere else, the clips that are going to be on the news aren't going to be about NATO. They're going to be about whether Joe Biden is still fit to run for president.
Yeah, and I think, there's been some feisty exchanges between reporters and the White House press secretary, and there's the sense that they're protecting him, that they're not being honest. So I can imagine it's going to get incredibly feisty. What did you make of Nancy Pelosi's changing tone in her support for Biden?
Yes, this is really interesting, Bev, because, of course, she's no longer House Speaker, but she is still a very, very influential member of Congress. And Nancy Pelosi is someone who chooses her words extremely carefully. So she seems to be indicating that it's up to other members of Congress, Democrats, to decide what they want to do to try to save their own skin in the November election, for all the House members especially. And she's obviously not giving Joe Biden a full-throated endorsement at this time. And a lot of people on Capitol Hill and elsewhere are looking for these cues from Nancy Pelosi as to how things are going to shift in the next hours and days.
With your experience in watching these issues, how do you think this is going to play out?
It appears that the damage is done because even if Joe Biden stays at the top of the ticket and he's defiant and is giving no indication that he's going to be pushed aside, the polls are starting to show in these critical swing states that he's losing more support, that these states are now swinging towards the Republican Party and Donald Trump. And there's even talk, which was unimaginable a couple of months ago, that the Republicans could not only have a landslide victory in the presidential race, but take both, retain the House and take back the Senate. And that would be just an utter historical disaster for the Democrats.
Yeah. And to your point, this is a big NATO summit. It's the 75th anniversary. Volodymyr Zelensky has been desperately seeking reassurance about the US's ongoing support. Does he go away with that?
Well, obviously, Joe Biden has presented himself very well during the NATO summit, mostly reading off the teleprompter. Other foreign leaders, I think, don't want to really get involved in domestic U.S. politics, but President Zelensky of Ukraine, who's here, made it clear that there is nervousness in Ukraine and among NATO about the presidential election, not saying it directly, but that if Donald Trump gets back in, it could be a lot tougher for Ukraine and its defensive war against Russia and for the alliance as well.
Yeah. Steve, it's going to be a very interesting and busy day for you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Bev.